And then afterwards, we'll be sure to give everybody a chance to ask Mr. Romero a question if you want. So we'll do a Q&A, so just bear with us. Cool, thanks for coming to ZomBCon too. All right, Thom, you want to open?
Just, what was your name?
I'm Sean the Butcher Smithson, and this is Thom Carnell, and we both write for Fangoria magazine. Thanks for asking me that. Yeah. And while we're at it, very quickly, please read the magazine again. It's under new editorship, and we're really proud of
Chris
the last.
Doing an awesome job.
Yeah, he's been Chris Alexander, who you may have read in Rue Morgue magazine, is now the editor-in-chief of Fangoria magazine, and he's done an amazing job of giving the magazine a facelift. And Thom and I are very proud to be working for him right now. We're proud to be sitting here with Mr. George Romero.
So I guess we should start with you. Growing up, you were a New York boy,
Yeah.
and what was that like?
I fled in the end.
Did you?
Yeah, I had, we didn't have any money, and I was a Latino, or at least half Latino. And because of my name, I used to get beat up by the Italian guys.
Yeah.
And so it was not a lot of fun.
I noticed a little that in your speech. I get a little forget about it now.
Forget about it. A little New York comes out.
Yeah, yeah.
What area in New York were you from?
Bronx. Near the Whitestone Bridge.
And what years did you spend there?
Let's see, shortly before reincarnation, I arrived. Well, 40, I guess, through high school, whatever that was. And went to Pittsburgh to go to college.
Yeah, I was going to say, how did you? Yeah, so you ended up in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and then stuck around in Pittsburgh.
That was at Carnegie Mellon.
Yeah, yeah.
And was that a good experience for you?
Partly it was. I went in as a painting and design major. My dad was a commercial artist, and I thought I had some talent, and I quickly learned that I didn't have enough, and so I transferred to the theater department, and never graduated. I did 2 years there, and got tired of. They weren't buying my speech patterns. We had these really strict. Actually, the school was great at that time, but there was this famous voice teacher there called Edith Skinner who didn't like the way I said my T's, and used to punish me by making me go listen to Gielgud records, and which was not a punishment.
Yeah, yeah.
But I could never do those T's like he did.
Were you always a film fan?
I loved film, but in those days there was only one film course at Carnegie Mellon. It was a wonderful theater school, but the film department consisted of a single course, and you watched Potemkin and talked about it. You could never get your hands on equipment, or they were not like film schools today where you can actually do the work and get some practical experience. So I left.
Going back to you liking film, what was the flashpoint in film for you? I think we all have it. Like all of us who love cinema have that moment where it's like, wow, some people it's King Kong, some people it's Night of the Living Dead.
Well, the film that made me really think seriously about the possibility of making films is an unexpected film called The Tales of Hoffman. I've spoken about this a lot. The Archers, Michael Powell and Emmerich Pressburger. And it's just a beautiful film. It's an opera. It's an opera with combined pieces of ballet, and it's some Offenbach music that's not usually in the opera when it's like played at the Met. Mm-hmm. But it's a fantasy. I mean, it's about these three unrequited loves of this a guy who grows older during the piece, Hoffman. And he falls in love with a mechanical doll. He falls in love with sort of a vampiress, and so I was able to watch it and still get a little bit of a thrill out of it. I mean, a genre thrill out of it. But it also just made me.
Because it was kind of fantastical.
Yeah, because it's fantastic. Yeah. But it made me appreciate classical music, and I think you could see Michael did it was a labor of love. And he did it with a limited budget, and you could see how he did the special effects. They were all sort of cheap and dirty, beautifully done, but the effects themselves they didn't even have money to do opticals. So it was obvious to me how some of these tricks were done, and that made it accessible.
How old
And
were you?
I guess 12. Was it 52 or 53? I think I was 12, maybe 13. And I was able to sort of translate how he did some of that work.
Mhm.
And that made me think, gee, maybe it's reachable. You know, I was just saying
Yeah.
that to Thom, that, you know, if I, at that age, had seen Jurassic Park, I just would have gone away puzzled. But I had played around with my uncle's 8mm camera, and so I knew some of the basics. And I could see some of those basics on the screen. And so it made me just want to learn more, and gave me the idea that maybe I could someday actually do it professionally.
Did you go back and dig after seeing this stuff?
I did, yeah. I started to really develop a real interest. I used to spend all my money renting. In those days, there was pieces.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, now
video.
everybody has the internet and Netflix, but how did you even access?
16mm prints. I had to go rent. I would spend all my allowance money on I'd rent a projector, 16mm projector, and go down to Janus or someplace. Most neighborhoods in big cities had these film rental libraries.
Yeah.
It was like, you know, the early VHS stores where you could walk in and browse the titles and get a movie that you loved and bring it home.
Wow, that sounds really great.
It was really great.
I understand when you went to rent sometimes. It was out.
Yeah, that story, should I tell that?
Yeah,
story?
please.
Well, nobody ever rented the Tales of Hoffman. So I would go down. I was the only guy that ever took it out. One day I went down and it was out. Someone had taken it out. And the guy at Janus said, "Oh, there's this kid over in Brooklyn. Likes the movie too."
Yeah.
So, okay. A little while later, the same thing happened. It was out again. The same kid had it. I found out years later that the kid was Marty Scorsese.
So awesome.
And he complained to me that he used to go try to get it. And some kid in the Bronx had it.
I'll just interject that I just recently rented Tales of Hoffman, and even today it's a stunning piece of work. And you can get it from Netflix, and you do a great little short interview there.
A little commentary, yeah,
Yeah,
it was
it's
great.
nice.
Oh, they put you on the DVD?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Marty and I have been big supporters of Michael Powell. And we don't, you know, Michael's married late in life, Scorsese's editor, Thom. And I've known her for years too. I got to meet Michael, unfortunately near the end of his life, but we got to hang out a little bit through Thom and through Martin.
Michael Powell.
Nice. So you were raised Catholic,
I was.
and how did that inform your filmmaking?
Maybe there's some of the frustration that comes out. I mean,
Are you still Catholic?
Probably that. No. I scrammed pretty early. I had just learned from the nuns that you could be a saint all your life, steal a baseball, get hit by a bus 10 minutes later, and you're in hell.
Wow.
So I said, that's not fair.
Yeah.
Because I made a habit of stealing baseballs.
I was going to say, you sold a lot of baseballs, right? Just look out for that bus.
Yeah.
But the story goes on. When my grandmother died, we went to the funeral. She was laid out there, and you know, all the family was going, well, at least she's in heaven now. And of course, I piped up and said, not necessarily. I got my ass kicked all over.
I found a baseball in your purse. Yeah. Now, I had heard that you had listed On the Waterfront, The Thing, Quiet Man, Tragedy of Othello, and Tales of Hoffman as your favorite films.
Boy, those are.
There's the list.
Well, let's go through it this way.
He's got a different list. That's
Yeah.
probably
Well,
Thom.
no, I have the same list, but let's go through On the Waterfront. What attracted you to that film? We'll do a little bit of word
Again,
association.
you know,
On the Waterfront, Marlon Brando.
Oh
Everybody
yeah.
seen it? Okay, cool.
again, I saw it at that age. You know, when was that? 54.
Yeah, and also Marlon Brando was very caustic.
He
back
was,
then, right?
yeah.
And Tennessee Williams was also like, whoa. So.
Yeah, well, that was Streetcar, I guess, but I don't
Oh,
know.
yeah,
and
that's
I don't know
right.
where
That's
those
not
came in
Atlanta.
terms. I don't know where. I think was the Wild one after Waterfront?
think
There's
so.
a good question,
It
huh?
wasn't.
I don't think it
Maybe
was.
that
I don't think.
released.
I think the Wild one was like his Fonzarelli role, where
Yeah, yeah.
that was his calling card, and then he was given more serious work.
Is that right?
Oh,
He did The
oh,
Men, I know, and then he did Zapata was, when was that?
Yeah, Viva Zapata.
That
That
was
was
Kazan.
after On the Waterfront.
After On the
Yeah,
Waterfront.
that was kind of like
Kazan again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway,
So
I just,
Brando was what attracted you to the On the Waterfront? or-
largely, but I also thought it was a real hard-ass film. I had still a little bit of that lingering Catholic thing, so I thought the Carl Malden character was
Yeah.
just so strong. I wish I had a priest like that. And,
Elia
and
Kazan.
it was just this hard-hitting film. I thought it was really, it was the first film that I saw that I thought was, really realistic and
Yeah.
was life the way it.
Wasn't
the
that
way
kind
it
of
actually
Elia Kazan's thing back then too?
It
wasn't
was, yeah, he was.
Elia Kazan is the director of On
Yeah.
the Waterfront, and he was blackballed during the whole McCarthy thing. And
Became vilified, unfortunately. I
Yeah.
guess he pulled some nasties.
so let's talk about Howard
Gave
Hawks' The
names.
Thing for a second.
Yeah.
Hmm?
The Thing is on
Yeah.
the list, which is
Well, is it Howard Hawks or Christian Nyby? I don't know.
well, yeah. Well,
I don't know who made that film. It's so Hawks that it's hard to
Yeah.
imagine that Nyby had a hand in
the original Thing from Another World.
it. No.
Hands? Yes.
Yes, come
Who's
on.
seen
Oh,
it? If you haven't, see it,
Yeah,
and then watch John Carpenter's The Thing right after it, because
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
both great.
I thought John's was really good. It got a bad, I think it took a bad rap.
Jaws? Or
John's.
Oh, John, yeah.
version,
Well, it came out the same week as E.T. and a bunch of families who went to see E.T. went to see the other Alien movie, and
It's not as sweet.
oops.
Rob Bottin
But, yeah.
sent him home
See, I mentioned
puking.
also in The Quiet Man. You mentioned The Quiet Man.
Yeah.
What a gorgeous
Just a
movie.
beautiful film, and it introduced me to Ford.
Yeah.
I guess that and The Searchers, and but The Quiet Man. I mean, I still love. The
I do too.
overture comes on and brings a tear to my.
Yeah.
And it's just this lovely story, and I know people. I can't get my girlfriend to watch it because she just is so turned off by John Wayne.
Yeah.
And I keep saying, this is not. Don't worry about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
He shoots no Indians in this movie.
Just the scenes of him dragging her across the.
Well, that you
Just
can.
amazing.
That's also. My girlfriend doesn't go for that too much either.
Yeah.
It's a little roughhouse there.
Yeah.
But she deserves it, Marino.
Yeah.
Talking about Marino.
There we
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, I was engaged to a woman who's a sociology professor here and with a specialty in Native American studies, and I made the mistake of bringing home The Searchers home one night. That was the beginning of the end. Orson Welles' The Tragedy of Othello, which I haven't even seen that, and I'm pretty literate, and I haven't even gotten it.
Well, Othello and Macbeth. There was in New York. There was a movie show, broadcast that showed films, and they would show the same film all week, twice a night, and then 3 times on Saturday, 4 times on Sunday. And that's where I first saw those films, and then subsequently went and rented 16 millimeter prints of them. And I think if I stole, I know that I stole a lot of the lighting and a lot of the just the graphic look from those films, Macbeth and Othello.
For your black and white work?
For Night,
in Living
specifically
Dead?
for
Yeah.
Night.
Yeah.
Faced with having to, suddenly, you mean we're really going to make a movie? What am I going to do?
Yeah.
So when
Who
you
you
have
gonna
this,
call?
so when you have this great work that you're trying to homage, that is done by amazing lighting people, and you're in Pittsburgh, and it's back in the day, and you're trying to recreate this. How
Trying
do
to
you
do it
go
with like
about
4
that? I
color
mean,
trends.
Yeah.
But you just use a lot of shadow, man.
yeah.
Okay, put a light here.
Yeah.
Looks great. Shoot.
And you're a noir fan too.
Well, they probably spent a fortune trying to make it look like natural light.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But yeah,
I'll take that.
I'll take that.
Yeah.
And just the compositions of light and shadow, particularly in those 2 films, extraordinary. And particularly Othello,
Yeah.
even more than.
So
You gotta see it.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah,
what?
it's
Like I
phenomenal.
said, I'm a scribbler. I will see it by next week.
Yeah.
By a week from today, I will have seen that.
Send you a book report. So you got to tell me, I had read something about Mr. Rogers gets a tonsillectomy.
Holy moly! What?
And you had said at one point that it was probably the scariest movie you ever made.
Well, you know, I joke, and
Was it scarier than The Juice is Loose?
Fred was a little scary.
Yeah.
Now, Juice on the Loose was scary too,
I bet.
for other reasons. But
That was when you were working for Fred Rogers.
yeah, well, it was my first sort of paying job as a shooter.
Yeah.
Fred was great. I mean, everyone that became a professional in any sort of electronic media got out from Pittsburgh, got their start on Fred's show. He used to help everybody out. What you see on that show is what you get when Fred walks into the room. He was that guy.
Wow.
And that was a little bit scary. That was the scary part of it. I mean, we go into the Hollywood. So one of the things I shot, he had this device called Picture Picture.
Yeah.
And the trolley would come out, ding ding, and a movie screen would appear. And he would say, let's see how they make light bulbs. And so one of the things I did was, how do they make light bulbs? And one of the things I did was Mr. Rogers gets a tonsillectomy, which was big.
Did you work with Mr. Rogers?
All the time, yeah.
Well,
on the show.
was that film based on the fact that Mr. Rogers needed a tonsillectomy?
No, he wanted
Just whatever. Let's just get one.
He wanted to take the fear out of it.
Yeah.
And so he hired.
Okay, so like we mentioned, The Juice is Loose. Is that?
Yeah.
Or,
Juice on the
Juice
Loose.
on the Loose,
Juice on the Loose.
which is with O.J. Simpson. You know, so you work with O.J. Simpson.
Yeah.
You work with Mr. Rogers. Well, what's your personal take on what's his name, Fred or Bob or
Who? Fred?
the real Mr. Rogers?
Oh, Fred Rogers. Well, he was I'm telling you, he was the sweetest man in the world. I mean, he's exactly that guy that you see on TV.
Wow, that's amazing.
Gentle, friendly, completely independent. They tried to through my partner and I, he used to do these things called operas, which would be 2-parters or 5-parters in some cases. And CBS wanted him to come and do one for the network. And they got to him through my partner and I after Night of the Living Dead. And Fred just said, forget about it. He didn't even come up to the meeting because he was too busy, on the street outside the Black Tower, meeting kids and signing autographs.
Wow.
But he just said, no, I would never do it.
That's really cool to hear.
No, he was just a wonderfully independent, and he had his own way of wanting to do things, and did it exactly that way. I mean, he had his own philosophy of how things should be taught, how you can take fear and anxiety out of some of these typical experiences that young people go through in those really early formative years, and he just really stuck to his guns. Was he a psychologist? I don't know.
Yes, he was. He was a child
not?
psychologist. I think he was. I think he was almost like a doctor.
We have an expert in the house.
I think he was a Presbyterian minister.
He was definitely that, but I think he was also a practicing
Yeah,
psychologist.
I think he was a clinician.
So
Or clinician.
having worked with
Steve Schlossman, if no one's mentioned.
Thanks. Yeah. Mr. Rogers expert.
there's so much more. So having
Aren't they
worked
all?
with those-
Zombie autopsies. his
Yes. So having worked with that sort of talent pool, was that the genesis of your decision to try to cast Lady Amberlin? as
Yes.
Barbara?
Well, I knew her from the show.
Well, let's contextualize Lady Amber.
Lady Amberlin from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
We had these characters: Chef Brockett, Handyman Negri, and Lady Aberlin.
And George had cast her at one, tried to cast
I
her
wanted to cast her
as
in Night of the
Barbara.
Living Dead. Yeah, as Barbara.
And Fred said,
Forget about it.
forget about it.
Because he knew what the film was going to be about.
Huh?
Because he knew what the film
He
was
did,
going
yeah,
to
and
be
he
about.
didn't object at all to the film. He was a great supporter of
Maybe
it.
he's mad that you didn't invite him to be in.
Maybe.
That would have been awesome. As a matter of fact, I'm going to have to go home and edit that together. Yeah.
And then later you also worked as a PA for Hitchcock.
Yeah, very, very brief. That's before, not later.
Was that before?
Yeah, that was. I was still in. I wasn't even in Carnegie Mellon.
So I'm trying to imagine you working for Hitchcock and also working on a Doris Day film.
What Hitchcock film
Doris
were
Day?
you?
Yeah.
called it.
Nothing,
Happy
I
Jane.
was just a gopher.
You were just getting coffee.
On North by Northwest,
Yeah, North by North.
Wow.
getting coffee.
I didn't know.
Oh,
Wow.
nice.
All we ever shot, all I ever was around for was the rear projection stuff.
Oh, okay.
We shot all the stuff that
Good
you
enough.
see in the back window of the cab. And Carrie came later.
But still, at the time, you're like,
Yeah, there it is, that's mine.
That's
That's
my
my
light
shot
post.
there.
Is after working with Hitchcock, however briefly and removed, is that why you put yourself in all your films?
No direct connection there. I was a frustrated actor from the pop. When I was at Carnegie Mellon, that's what I thought that I wanted to do. And so I just,
Are you open to being in somebody else's film?
I've done a couple, but not too frequently. It's too hard. I mean, it's too hard to,
too much waiting.
too much waiting around.
Yeah.
Get
Too much
nervous. Why aren't we working? But I just had this conceit that I would pop up, and finally gave up. And it was too hard. It was too hard to be behind the camera and then have to put a costume on and go do something. So,
Yeah. And it's like the old adage: they say you don't find your job finds you.
Yeah.
You know.
I
It
guess.
did, of course. It seemed like it worked out.
It did.
One quick callback. You mentioned as a painter. Do you still paint?
I do a little bit, but not too frequently.
And do you oil or?
Oil and pen and ink.
Okay.
But I have this little tremor. I have Katharine Hepburn's thing.
Okay.
So pretty soon I'll be talking like that. And so I have a harder time
Right.
with the pencils. And
What kind of subject matter are you into as far as illustration?
I don't know, will you sit for me?
Sure. In like a half a second. Yeah. We're done here. I'm gonna go.
Yeah, we're
sit.
gonna go sit.
So we've covered your old love for film and stuff like that. Speaking of new stuff, have you seen anything recently, even out of genre, that's floated your boat? What do you think's going on like recently in cinema that's made you happy?
I don't know. In the genre, I don't know. I think maybe Let the Right One In, the original.
Yeah. Have you seen the?
I haven't seen the remake.
I saw it in Austin. It's actually really good.
Is that right? Well,
Yeah,
I've heard
it's
such
good.
mixed things.
It's good.
I'll
It's
take
good.
your word for it.
Yeah, it's coming from the guy who made Cloverfield. It's an achievement. But we'll talk more about that.
Yeah.
And
I also meant like off genre. I mean,
Yeah.
'cause, we've talked about Shakespearean films and on the waterfront. So I mean, do you see many movies?
Yeah.
Right now?
Yeah.
What's the last couple movies you've seen?
Well, the last movie I actually went to a theater to see was Secretariat. But, it worked like an old-fashioned movie. It worked on me. I thought it was better than Seabiscuit. But, that's just, but it just happens to be the last time I've been on the road,
Yeah.
promoting survival for a while, and
Yeah.
now doing my sort of Halloween-y rounds.
how soon before we see that on the poster? Better than Seabiscuit.
Well, actually, you mentioned survival. Let's go ahead and cover the bases on the new zombie movies. I know that you have some things in your craw concerning more installments into the zombie mythology.
I do. I don't know if I'll ever get a chance to make them. I have, what happened is when we made Diary of the Dead, I sort of, part of me was running away from the bigger budget, the Land of the Dead thing that we had just done. And mainly I wanted to do this. I wanted to do something about emerging media and citizen journalism and all that. And so I started to, I was still editing Land of the Dead, and I started to noodle the script for Diary. And we met this company, group of people, a company called Artfire. They're willing to finance within a certain budget level and give me the creative controls. So they've become really wonderful partners to have. And I knew that I could make that film for around $2.5 million. And that was okay with them. So they basically just wrote the check for it. And that's why it happened so quickly. There was no real negotiations or deal making or anything like that. And then because we made it on so little money, even though it had a limited release, it wound up making a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
So immediately everybody said, we got to do another one. And that's really where Survival came from. And when I
So let me interject here very quickly, because the train in business moves very swiftly now, especially with things like the internet. And between the time that Diary came out and Survival came out, did you see any swing in the industry too?
You know, I don't look at the industry that much. It's my partner's job. I know that I saw firsthand the difference at the Toronto Film Festival is where both those films were sold. And the difference was huge, because the year that Diary was there, everything was selling. Everybody was buying everything in sight. And when Diary came out, only 3 films sold at the festival that year.
Wow.
And so there was a noticeable reluctance.
Do you have an opinion of why that's the case? Do you think downloading has anything to do with it?
I think it probably must have some kind of an influence.
Which to
But I'm
interject
not
here,
sure.
please go see these movies in theaters,
Yeah.
because that's the way to keep them alive.
It's the way to keep the filmmakers going, I'll tell you
Yeah.
that. But I mean, I know it's a big disappointment. People don't.
Yeah.
They'll wait for the DVDs and go out and buy those.
Yeah.
And,
And especially horror fans right now, like Hatchet 2 had a big problem because horror fans just don't go to theaters anymore.
and
And if you guys want to see theatrical horror, you need to go.
yeah.
I never saw.
But also the distributors, you hardly know it's there.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't push it
Yeah.
because they know that this is the way it's trending, and they don't give them good releases, and that's what happens, unfortunately.
What do you think about a lot of the modern product?
A lot of what?
The modern product, modern genre product?
Yeah. I
mean,
don't
do
think
you
too
think that
much
it is
about it.
product?
I don't know, man. I mean, there's first of all there's so much remaking and so much just sort of uninspired work going on.
Mhm.
People that have no affection for the genre
Right,
or the medium for that.
right.
Mhm.
I agree.
And,
When you look at American film, horror film, and then you look at what's happening in Korea or Spain or Italy or even, I'm seeing stuff coming out of like the Philippines and Thailand that are genuinely scary.
Yeah.
And then you look at American product that seems to be created via consensus group.
Right.
You know?
I don't know. Chris Rowe is telling me about a film called Insidious.
Yeah,
Yeah.
James Wan, who did
Yeah.
the first Saw. And
Yeah, but that's an American.
Yeah, and I think I haven't seen it yet, but and Chris Alexander was telling me how great it was too. But I think that's an anomaly. You know, it's like it's not really like par for the course at all in this country.
Well, I think also you get these program sort of things, the After Dark Horror Fest and Fangoria's Fright Fest and Dimension Extreme that are packages of films,
Yeah.
and they get them at such a sometimes at the service of the filmmaker that they're just not what I remember as a kid, being genuinely scared by.
Yeah, well, I think it was easier to scare us, or I'm predate you by a lot.
Not by much, my friend.
Yeah. You're not that. Yeah.
It was a little easier to be scared.
Yeah.
Also, that communal experience when theaters were full, and you were going to see something that had
Yeah.
some importance.
It was
Like
an
when
event.
it was an event,
Yeah.
even if it was just a little, neighborhood theater. It was everybody,
Sure.
all your buddies were there. Everybody went to see the thing,
Yeah.
Or even the re-releases of the old Universal monsters. I mean, I saw those all big screen and re-release.
Wow.
And how many people have seen Frankenstein or Dracula on a big screen? You?
Yeah, amazing.
Baltimore, Maryland, 3.5 years old, Johns Hopkins University. Very proud. Still remember that night.
So let's.
We're being told we have 5 minutes, by the way. So.
Okay.
So I want to ask you a couple things about some things that I'm hearing about. Savini was talking about children shouldn't play with dead things.
Yeah.
Is that something that you're working on?
I'm not working on it, no.
I mean,
Do you know anything
he
about
says
it?
that you're producing.
Producing? I don't know. I've been sort of invited by Thom DeFeo.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Or not invited to the extent that he said, would you be interested? So I said, sure. But that's as far as it's gone.
Now looking for another scoop.
Huh?
Frank Darabont is now doing the Walking Dead series for AMC,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
owes an
Yeah.
enormous debt to your work,
Yeah.
as does Robert Kirkman's comic. Only comic that's ever made me cry, by the way. So if you haven't read it, read it. It's amazing. I I hear rumors that you might be directing an episode next season.
I won't.
No?
You won't?
Is that by design?
I
or-
haven't been asked, first of all, but I guess.
Well,
Frank-
letter writing campaign. Bang.
No, wait.
Wait.
Frank made an announcement that he was going to ask other directors to do episodes if there's a second season, and we've never spoken about it. I know Frank. I've known him for a while, but I don't think I would want to do it. It's just not mine. I wouldn't want to do a zombie thing that's not mine. You know?
Right.
My zombie things have been their own sort of their own little sort of peculiar world, and I think I just want to keep it that way.
Okay, well that actually leads me to a nice closing question is you are extremely independent. How do you remain so independent, and how do you get your movies out, and how do you from that to what do you maybe give away in retaining your independence? What have you maybe given up? What do you get from it?
The nice thing about these last two films of working with Artfire is that I haven't had to give anything up. In fact, they gave me all the controls. And I made the films exactly the way I wanted to make them. They were mine from the keyboard all the way to the answer print. And so I haven't had to give anything up creatively. It's been harder and harder to get them distributed. I don't know how Survival is going to do. If it does well, I have 2 more ideas that I would really like to do and sort of wrap it all up. Both of them would involve minor characters from Diary.
Which
And,
ones?
You know the looters that they
Black
went
guys.
into,
That's
the black guys?
Awesome.
And the blonde that escapes.
Oh yes, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I can do it now because my partner and I have ownership positions. The first 4 films are owned and controlled by different people. So I could never use repeat characters or repeat story points or whatever. So I have this conceit that I'd love to do this little collection of 4 films where they will eventually, characters will meet up with each other.
together.
Story points will play out like.
Did you have that in mind when you wrote them?
When I
Like,
wrote
are the
Survival.
actors like
When I
ready
wrote
to move
Survival.
into those?
No, not when I wrote Diary,
Survival.
but when I was writing Survival, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I used Alan Van Sprang, I used the sergeant's character.
Yeah.
I will say the acid kill by in the looters warehouse was so good. Yeah. And I do have to say one other thing.
myself.
Yeah. I do have to say one thing. Of all your films, everyone has favorite characters, and I always hear people talk about certain characters that resonate with them. And I must share with you mine because no one ever seems to mention this guy. The one-legged priest in Dawn.
Oh, yeah.
So amazing, just such an amazing. Just
Who is he?
His name is Jesse Del Grey.
Yeah.
He was a guy that used to, all the time that I was working in Pittsburgh, he was a guy that just hung around the streets. Basically a homeless
He
guy.
was not an actor?
Really?
Oh, no.
God, he's so natural
so
in
good.
that.
Yeah.
He's so
But
Just
he
let
would
me
come and help
pass.
out, and people would give him the little jobs to do and stuff. We tried to help him out whenever we could. But he just never wanted to work or, he was
Wow.
just, yeah.
Just an outsider.
Yeah, an outsider.
to this day, that character just.
God, yeah, there's something epic about it that happens
Yeah.
so much. Again, like you say, like going back and visiting these other characters that you've
Right.
seeded into your stuff. I would love to see something about that. So if we could go back to that point in time, and just let me
Jesse
pass.
it was a lovely stroke, I thought. He did it perfectly. It was great. I mean, it made that idea come alive.
And it's interesting that so often in that film, when there's no more room in hell speech is quoted, but no one ever seems to talk about when the dead walk, we must stop the killing.
Stop the
or lose
killing,
the
we
war.
lose the war, yeah.
So good, just amazing.
Well, I guess that No More Room in Hell became the poster line.
Yeah,
so-
yeah.
And what a line it is.
It is.
Many people have it tattooed on them. Well, we would really like to thank you for coming to Seattle, sir.
Thank you.
It's such an honor to have you. Me personally, so much pleasure that it's immeasurable. It's a lifelong dream to meet you, and it's a joy to talk with you.
I can.
Thank you.
It seems so trite when people say that your work and you as a person changed their lives, but I will look you in the eye and tell you that your work and you as a man and as a filmmaker have totally changed my life.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
And I was like,
Take
thank
the
Sean and
fail
Thom.
call. We'll ask him if it's a real deal. I'll be-
Thank you guys.
George
for-
Romero, everybody. One more time.
Oh, okay. Oh, I thought we were doing other stuff.
I'm going to come grab you sometime this weekend. Every single one.
Doing pictures on my regular camera.
Yeah. Oh, that.
They were all low on battery.
Can I have a picture with you before you bail?
Sure, sure.
You what?
Okay, so look at you.
Tom's legend.
Okay, bye. Let's go. Let's go. Oh, you, oh.
Don't worry about it. I mean, it was pretty easy. So they know that.
Just have them give me the tapes and write their names on them.
I'm on top of shit right now.
Me too. Thank you. Have you been reading the new stuff? Have you been reading the new issues?
So much better now. So much more passion. Yeah. We had
I know a lot of the more people, and there's some hipster shit going on.